What do you dream about? Not the dreams you have in your sleep, the ones you hold in your heart.
After Dave Chappelle's New Year's special called The Dreamer, news articles came out with headlines like these. As a result of this, I thought it important to touch on the topic of comedy.
I think white people are the only race of people that like to be scared for fun. Not an attack. Doesn't make you bad. Makes you interesting. But not bad, but bungee jumping, skydiving, swimming with sharks. These are torture tactics.
I know this is a topic I've discussed already in the past, but I think it's important for us to keep having this conversation. Because, I mean, people might not be aware of what comedy is and why it's necessary for society, and always has been a part of it. And this is also for people who might not have seen the old videos.
And now I'll be performing one of my favorite songs of all times. A 1, a 2, a 3. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you're living in a dream. When you're living in a dream. I can't.
Humor and comedy have long been staples of societal interaction, providing not only entertainment, but also a release from the harsh realities of life. It's an escape. Suppressing such an essential part of human expression can definitely have far-reaching implications. In society, comedy provides a medium through which we can explore and challenge societal norms. It allows us to foster dialogue on different topics and often serves as a social equalizer or an icebreaker. By making fun of societal structures and behaviors, comedy can critique power dynamics, challenge stereotypes, and promote a sense of community through shared laughter. That's one thing that the majority of humanity share: the ability to laugh.
What about the opposition leader, Tony Abbott? Look at that cat. Look at that cat.
I don't know why that gets me every time. In so saying, I would argue that removing this platform can in fact stifle conversation and hinder social progression, which is probably the reason why the media seems so hell-bent on stifling it. Look at these articles that say Dave Chappelle's The Dreamer proves he's obsessed with trans people. Hilarious when you consider that the media seems to be too. But anyway, Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special proves he's learned nothing. He's a comedian. What is he supposed to learn? Not to make fun of people?
The noble thing to do was to stop him to save her.
What was... Okay, bro was trying to make her laugh. Like, what are you doing? Alright, let's get into this whole essay before I start. So, when we talk about comedy, from a psychological perspective, humor, which is an integral part of comedy, acts as a coping mechanism. It helps individuals to manage stress and anxiety and other negative emotions. It fosters resilience. It can facilitate a more positive outlook on life. You know, rather than getting angry at everything, you can learn once in a while how to laugh at things. A lack of comedic relief can contribute to increased mental health issues, as it removes a key strategy for managing life's difficulties. You'll notice that the most miserable people in life are the ones that find offense in everything and are unable to laugh or struggle to find humor in anything.
He's lying. Now, I don't doubt that they do this kind of shit in Washington, but I doubt he's seen it with his own eyes. Because who the fuck invites a paraplegic to an orgy?
Everything is always a movement that needs activism, and with that mindset, all that happens as a consequence is more people become more aggressive towards each other and more sensitive and less useful towards society.
Name a country in Africa.
There's no country in Africa. What?
So what's in Africa then?
Is Africa a state? Yeah, what? Africa's not a country though.
What is it?
It's a state. I didn't go to school.
I know you didn't, but Africa is in fact a state. Correct. Trick question. Well done.
Yeah, I was thinking you were confusing me there.
Yeah. Okay. Name a country in South America.
Africa. That's a state, not a country. The U.S. I really don't know. I'm like that dumb. You don't understand? I didn't do geography. My geography class is like I didn't.
What the fuck? You may not think this is a big deal, but suppressing comedy and the ability to make fun of things can lead to a number of negative consequences. On a societal level, it can exacerbate division and conflict, because it removes the platform for challenging and discussing societal norms. This makes it difficult to have conversations, it makes it more challenging, and it potentially leads to more misunderstandings and hostility. It causes people to lack the very skill set needed for human beings to thrive and interact with each other, and that is communication. Funny enough, in the advent of social media, the thing that was supposed to facilitate us being able to communicate with each other, people seem to lack the ability to do so as well as comprehend each other. On an individual level, not being allowed to express or engage with humor can result in increased stress and reduced resilience, aka lack of a backbone and fortitude. Humor and laughter have been proven to have physical benefits, including boosting the immune system and decreasing stress hormones. And without this outlet, people tend to struggle to manage stress effectively, and this leads to potential physical and mental health implications. Our ability to laugh at things and laugh at each other and with each other is an essential aspect of human society and mental health. And we've seen that the more people are sensitive about things regardless of the topic, is the more sensitive they become about those things and others. Taking life way too seriously 100% of the time and taking everything too seriously isn't good for anyone's health. Comedy has historically been a powerful tool for social commentary, challenging societal norms, and fostering a community. And in the context of Dave Chappelle's stand-up comedy, a prevalent theme is the ability to make fun of everyone, irrespective of their racial, ethnic, or gender identity. There was a saying that people claimed was written by a neo-Nazi. I can't confirm or deny this, and I'm pretty sure this is not the only person who has said this, but it's interesting that all the articles are running with this so that people can look back at this quote and think that using it must mean that they are too in agreement, anyone who says or quotes this, with everything that specific neo-Nazi allegedly said. If that is indeed who actually came up with this quote, which I highly doubt. The quote reads, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize." You'll notice that North Korea and the Chinese government don't allow people to criticize them. And I wonder, what do those two nations have in common? Notice when you try to criticize the media or certain elites how they respond. Interesting then that all the media and news articles and the people in control of the narrative for the masses is saying anyone who quotes this saying, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize," by implication is quoting a neo-Nazi if they simply state the obvious, that if you're not allowed to make fun of something, it potentially means that that thing has too much power or preferential treatment. Imagine you're on a playground and you're with a whole bunch of other kids just like you who are playing. And you all make fun of each other. You each find something silly about the other person to make fun of. Everyone is laughing. But when it comes to this specific kid, a really tall kid, you're not allowed to make fun of him. He gets upset and tells his parents that you're being hateful, even though he was laughing at all of you being made fun of. How would that make you feel? And then he gets all of you in trouble as a result. And how do you think that kid would be moving from that point? Like he's entitled and has a lot of power, as humans do. A popular example of this is when the Chinese government blocked images and mentions of Winnie the Pooh on social media because internet users had used the character and compared him to CCP General Xi Jinping by simply stating in jest how the two look similar. Citizens residing in countries with authoritarian governance often face police visits, micromanagement, or censorship when expressing criticism about the government, even if it's warranted, even if the government's actions are negative and hurting them, simply through observance. It is very clear and undeniable that when you're not allowed to mock or criticize something or make fun of something, it's usually something that either is in or seeking to have total power. It's also a common trait of narcissism. Narcissists are sensitive to criticism and mockery because of their fragile sense of self-esteem.
Open your mouth.
It also takes away their idea of power and control, and they will either react in anger and defensiveness or make attempts to damage the reputation of those mocking them or criticizing them, even if it means lying.
I'm just reading. No, but Buster's a guest in that home. How dare you insinuate something like that? You cheated on me. Look, I told your ass ain't nothing happened. And the next time you say it happened again, I'm gonna knock your teeth out your mouth. It never happened. Yes, it did. And that makes you the queen of whores.
So let's recenter on the topic of Chappelle's special and the media platforms and social media and how they are spinning this narrative. See, comedy targets everyone, or at least it's supposed to. Dave Chapelle has made fun of black people and white people and basically everybody under the sun. However, as soon as he includes trans people into the mix, despite people belonging to that group not having a problem laughing at the former subjects on their own or everything else, he is painted as a villain in the media and claimed that he is targeting the specific people. One important lesson in such situations is that the moment you express anger at a comedian for mocking you is likely the moment the comedian will intensify the mockery in response to your attempt to damage their reputation and cancel them due to not finding the joke amusing. Now, in line with the discussion, I understand as well that it is implied that comedians are exempt from criticism. I mean, the essence of freedom of expression lies in the ability for us to critique anything. However, issues arise when individuals attempt to strip comedians of their right to criticize, which is a fundamental aspect of their profession. If the trend of finding everything offensive persists, the boundaries of acceptability in comedy will continually recede until nothing remains immune to humor. The situation is kind of similar to the one where the Fine Brothers YouTubers, who made a living out of reacting to things or getting people to react to certain videos, then had the nerve to try and make it so nobody else was able to react to anything. Or the Fresh and Fit YouTubers copyright striking everyone for criticizing them when they do exactly the same thing to many people and make a living off of it, while also using their content as well. This behavior is bizarre and screams low self-esteem and high narcissism, as it implies expecting the entire world to conform to your preferences. Dave Chappelle's humor, which includes trans and disabled people, is not a form of targeting, but rather a tool for normalization and inclusion, and how misinterpretation can actually be harmful. And the headlines that are propagating that he's specifically targeting these people is actually misinterpreting comedy, and it can actually be harmful. Here's the irony of it all. Chappelle's approach to comedy is grounded in the principle that humor should not discriminate. His jokes reflect a spectrum of identities, including racial minorities, the LGBTQ+ community, and people with disabilities. By including these groups in his comedy, Chappelle applies an equalizing lens, implying that everyone is a part of the societal fabric and is therefore subject to the same humorous critique. The argument here isn't that making fun of certain groups is inherently good for the community, but rather that the ability to laugh at ourselves and our identities can foster a sense of belonging and acceptance. Accusations of Chappelle targeting trans people or other specific groups overlook the broader context of his comedy. People will take one line and say, look at what he said, instead of actually considering the context and the entire picture or entire phrasing. In Dave Chappelle's special in 2023 or the 2024 marking the new year, he made fun of a wide range of topics, yet the focus on his trans jokes led to this perception of targeted harm. This selective outrage can be damaging, as it misrepresents the intent of his comedy and potentially fosters division rather than unity. People's sensitivity, while I understand is valid, shouldn't be used to selectively censor comedy, because that undermines the equalizing potential that humor can offer, and it serves to work against those very communities becoming normal parts of society. I don't know, but trying to make yourself more special than the rest of society is only going to cause you to become more outcasted and hated. You're going to consistently find yourselves as individuals who differ from everyone else and are undesired by others because you opt not to integrate into society. It's fine if people choose to live that way, but then they shouldn't be astonished when others treat them as they've indicated they wish to be treated. Examining the reaction to Chappelle's jokes, it's very clear that some groups laugh at jokes aimed at them and others, while some only laugh when the jokes are aimed at others. This reflects a double standard that is counterproductive to the unifying potential of comedy. Comedy thrives on the ability to push boundaries and challenge societal norms. So, preferential treatment in comedy, where some groups are considered off limits for humor, does in fact lead to division and a sense of exclusion. And people need to recognize that the media thrives off dissension and division. You see, when the news articles misrepresent information, as in the case of Dave Chappelle's comedy special, it has this far-reaching and really detrimental effect. We've seen how the media has the ability to influence societal attitudes and people's beliefs and their behaviors when they misrepresent facts or present them out of of context as they've done in those headlines that we've seen, that leads to misinformation. It leads to misunderstanding and ultimately potentially harm. In the case of Dave Chapelle, when the news outlets misreport his jokes as malicious attacks on the trans community, that only ends up creating an environment of hostility and actually, ironically, further marginalization of the trans people. While it seems as though the media may be allies on the surface, they are in fact fueling ongoing conflicts between the trans community and others. They're sensationalizing it, and they're no longer functioning as the news. They're being inaccurate in their reporting, seemingly for the purpose of distorting the public's view of the trans community, or even comedians as a whole. This reinforces harmful stereotypes and further stigmatizes an already marginalized group. It can also hinder the progress made towards acceptance and inclusion by creating unnecessary conflict. What's more is that it can cause division within the community itself. By focusing on these perceived slights or injustices, the media can distract from the larger issues that the trans community faces, like actual real discrimination, violence, or lack of legal protection. Also, it might lead to censorship of comedians like Chappelle, which could in turn limit the broader societal conversation about identity, acceptance, and change. Comedy can be a powerful tool for challenging these societal norms and helping people to understand each other by fostering dialogue. By misrepresenting it as harmful, we risk losing this platform for discussion and growth, and for bonding. I'm not going to say this all lies in the news, because the need to instigate also comes from somewhere. Have you ever been in school and there's this one person who knows an individual who likes to fight if anyone talks about him or her behind their back? That's called an instigator. And this instigator might hear something, take it out of context, and run towards the pugnacious person and tell them, yo, this person said this about you. What you gonna do about it? The instigator might even tell several people, so the rumor snowballs and is more believable to the fighter, the person who wants to fight, to the point where this fighter believes that because everyone is saying it, even though that's just the narrative and not the actuality, that it's real. So what ends up happening is the fighter will find the innocent person and everyone will be watching, and the noise of everyone cheering them on to fight will be so loud, the fighter feels like they now have to deliver and can't even hear the person trying to explain themselves. Or maybe they're high on the crowd's cheers. Meanwhile, the instigator is over the shoulder of the fighter telling them, you gonna let them get away with that? Do it, you're gonna look like a bitch. And so the fighter feels as though he must continue and follow through for the sake of his reputation and community. As I said before, for the instigator's plan to work, he must prey on someone who he knows will scrap regardless. Someone who's always ready for a fight, for the least little thing. Someone who's very sensitive and reactionary. A lot of very sensitive communities have this issue, and this is the reason why the news is able to use them in this manner.
Say live and let die.
Rowling wrote all the Harry Potter books by herself. And it canceled because she said in an interview, it's not exactly what she said, but factually, she said gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as shit, they started calling her a TERF. I didn't know what the fuck that was. But I know that trans people make up words and arguments. Stands for trans exclusionary radical feminists. It's a real thing. This is a group of women, and they don't hate transgender women, but they look at trans women the way we blacks might look at blackface. It offends them. Like, this bitch is doing an impression of me.
The outrage expressed by some trans individuals may create a perception of the trans community as being overly sensitive or unwilling to engage in societal critique. While it's essential for everyone to stand against genuine hate speech or discrimination, misinterpreting comedy as such can create an unproductive narrative, and it also misrepresents possibly the majority of trans people. Continuous outrage over perceived slights could potentially alienate allies and neutral parties. If people feel that they're always walking on eggshells, they may retreat from engaging with the trans community out of fear of causing offense. This will hinder the efforts towards inclusion and acceptance, as it damages dialogue and understanding. Also, focusing outrage on a comedy special may detract from more important issues faced by the trans community, like certain rights or mental health care stuff, pressing problems that urgently need attention and resources. But when the spotlight is on a comedy special, it takes away from the focus on these critical issues. Chappelle's comedy special, like many others, can be seen as a platform for initiating conversations on various societal themes, including gender identity. By dismissing it as just a blanket stroke offensive, there's a missed opportunity for constructive dialogue about the trans community and the issues they face. This continual outrage, especially when misdirected, can potentially harm the trans community by fostering negative perceptions, alienating allies, and as I've said, distracting from more significant actual issues. It's like you're basically shutting down the conversation before it has a chance to be brought up. It's really important to strike a balance between defending against genuine actual harm and maintaining an open conversation to foster understanding and acceptance. We have to remember that these are words, and the actions that follow after are more important.
so sorry. I just had
Despite expressing those views within the realm of comedy, I do acknowledge that comedy comes down to subjectivity as well. There are instances where things are done in poor taste. And even if the comedian's intent isn't malicious, part of delivering content to the masses involves experience and understanding one's audience and how to deliver it. Someone can say something and it come out sounding horrible, and then a more experienced comedian can say the same thing or tell the same joke and it actually come out tasteful. The worst outcome, though, might be that people just don't find it funny and they choose not to attend the show or support the comedian or laugh at the joke. However, even in the case of a joke in poor taste, I believe it's not justified for people to be canceled or just lose their livelihood, especially if the intent was not malicious. I understand that some people might disagree with me, but before going crazy in the comments, I implore you to reflect on a time when you might have made an irreverent or indecorous joke, thinking it was funny only to be met with disapproving looks. Would it have been fair for others to go out of their way to get you fired or spread rumors about you that weren't true? Is it not more mature and human for people to simply just ignore a joke that they don't find funny rather than launching a campaign and a holy war to ruin someone's career and life? It's so important to remember that comedians and celebrities are human too. And if they're not actively trying to cancel other people, they shouldn't be crucified for making a joke that could be equivalent to an insult that someone might throw at you on the street. And in so saying, people need to differentiate between hateful insults and lighthearted humor. The problem arises because people seem to have lost the ability to comprehend basic human speech, relate to one another, and engage in actual dialogue. This lack of understanding sarcasm, nuance, and intent is really unfortunate, and it makes sense in a society where people rarely sit down to have genuine conversations anymore. The most sensitive people are often those who are always online, quick to block anyone with an opposing view without opening up a dialogue, and super sensitive about everything. All of this to say, comedy, as displayed in Dave Chappelle's stand-up, has the potential to normalize and include all groups of society by treating them equally in humor. Misinterpretations and selective outrage can be more harmful than the jokes themselves because they end up fostering division and a sense of exclusion. It is so important for comedy to be non-discriminatory. The whole point of it is to provide this platform to critique society as a whole. And thus, if everyone can be critiqued, then we are all unified in that manner. Nobody's above anything. In my culture, everyone made fun of everybody and everybody got along for the most part. It was super chill. And the more you're unable to make fun of people and you're constantly worried about offending people, is the more miserable people become with each other. To the point where nowadays, nobody knows how to talk to each other anymore and everyone resents each other for no reason. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.